Over the years, there have been a lot of games that I have played, and I know, shocking, right? And they've been across multiple different game systems, and a lot of these games that I've played, some have really stuck out in my mind for the different game systems that I bought. Some of them were really good, some of them not so good, but really is something that I loved and it just stuck with me. So what I wanted to do today, and this might be a two-parter, is kind of show you some of the games that stuck out in my mind that stayed with me throughout the years as I've discovered different consoles. And this is probably going to go back probably through my childhood, but a lot of the uh, the retro consoles that are not Sega related are going to be ones that I discovered probably early 2000s, late 90s, something like that. So let's go through some games that I personally love or stood out to me. Probably one or two per console. And I'm not going to include all the consoles in these videos. And again, some of these games may not be actually really good or long or whatever, but these are games that have stuck out with me as some of the ones that are my favorites for these consoles for whatever reason. And I'm going to go into that. But let's go ahead. I made a couple different piles, and again, I think I'm going to do this in a couple different parters. So if we'll kind of decide by the end of the video. I think I'll do two parters. And I don't think I have any PC games in here. These are strictly console games for the moment. But all right, let's go ahead and dive into that right now. So the first one I got in a pile is a game for the Atari 2600. It's called Journey Escape. So this was a game that was popularized and based on the band Journey. And I grew up listening to Journey as a kid. My parents liked that kind of music, and I really like it. But so this is a one or two player game, and it's interesting because what really stuck out to me is this was kind of like an infinite runner type of a game where you kind of run in one direction and evade the obstacles and everything. But it's basically the band Journey. You're playing the band Journey uh, in this game, and you can hear renditions of some of their music in there, or at least one of their tracks, if not a couple. Very basic game, but for the Atari, there was a few that I really enjoyed and some that I really hated. I did not. Let's say unpopular opinion. I may have to play this one again, but Spider-Man. I did not like Spider-Man. Uh, uh, I don't know. There's something about it. But anyways, Journey Escape really stuck out with me in my childhood, and I really, I have fond memories of this game, and I'm glad I have it. Actually, at one point, we had gotten rid of all of our Atari and Sega Master System games, and ended up finding this in a wild years ago, and of course rebought it because it stuck out with me. So Journey Escape for the Atari 2600. Okay, next up, we've got one that I have had for a long while. This is a Japanese release for the Sega Saturn. Now, I don't have the American release, but this is Saturn Bomberman that is known in the US. And this one, it's funny because this one, again, I got the Japanese version, and I got it because the American version, even when I got this was over a decade ago. It was probably like 15 years ago at this point. I got it because the American version was just too expensive, and it's astronomical now compared to when it was then. But I got it because it's very low point of entry to get into the. You don't really need to know Japanese to play this. Um, you know, there are some Japanese menus, of course, but the love this game. So this one, and again, I do have a couple different Saturn games that kind of stick out, but if I were to choose one, Saturn Bomberman was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get a Saturn as a kid. I remember seeing advertisements for Saturn Bomberman, and I loved Mega Bomberman for the Genesis. That game. I loved the maps on it. I loved the just the entire gameplay progression through the game, you know, the different items and stuff. And I heard it's like, oh, you can connect up to 4 different multi-taps and have 16 players, and I never did that yet. One day I'll play a multiplayer game of Saturn Bomberman with 16 players, but this one just kind of steps it up. The music's awesome. The graphics are really great. I feel like this is one. I mean, there's new Bomberman games out there, but the series really, in my opinion, peaked with Saturn Bomberman. Bomberman Online on the Dreamcast was also one that I played heavily, local multiplayer and online actually back then. But the Saturn Bomberman, like for the Sega Saturn, Saturn Bomberman was one that I really wanted to pick up. I ended up picking this up in Japanese. One of my first Japanese games, I think, for the Saturn. I have a bunch now. And yeah, so I love it. And yeah, Saturn Bomberman stands out to me and the Saturn because of just how good it was and how much I wanted to play it. And it did not disappoint. I could pop this in any day and go back and enjoy it as kind of my like what Saturn game do I want to play today? Well, default would be Saturn Bomberman. Again, I love the Sega Saturn. It's one of my favorite game platforms, if not of all time. And I will, but the Saturn Bomberman just, it always blows me away. I love it. Next up, for the Sega Genesis, Granada. So, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Granada. That's how I've been pronouncing it. So this one is kind of funny. Back in the mid to late 90s, when eBay was brand new, we had bought a disc on there. We had 56K. There's no way we could really quickly download stuff, but we'd bought a disc with an emulator on it and a bunch of ROMs. And one of the games that I picked out and played was Granada. And this is one of those ones where you play pirated first, or I played pirated first, and I discovered it. I'd never seen it locally as a kid, and this one I was like, well, it's a it's a shooter, it's a vehicle shooter, top down, but it's one of those ones where you can explore the map. It wasn't just like a shooter where you had a bunch of stuff coming at you and you were going in a linear path. So that was kind of a different one. I had never played a game like that before, and the music was great. I mean, it's by Renovation, so by now they're kind of renowned for what they do on the Genesis and other platforms. But this was one of the first games I played like that on just any system, and still to this day, if I were to pick out from my library of Genesis games, top 10, Granada would be in it, even though there's a ton of amazing games in Genesis. I would say probably the Genesis is my favorite game system of all time. It's tough to choose, but Granada is a top contender for that for me. And yeah, I've ever since then, I mean, I sought out a copy and bought it eventually, and I've had this one for about 20 years now, easily 20 years. And yeah, so if you have not played this, absolutely recommend playing it for the Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, whichever region platform you get it on. Now, the GameCube. This one is kind of interesting because there's a lot of standard GameCube games that are just fantastic. I mean, just, go to any top 10 list, and those games I love. I absolutely love. I got the GameCube kind of late, probably late 2000s, just because, I don't know, I was kind of diving into Sega and going back and playing and collecting the back catalog. So, but fun enough, I ended up choosing for this Sonic Gems collection for the GameCube, just because I have to say this is one of those ones where this release really stood out on the GameCube for me, especially as a Sonic collector, because you had games that you really never, let's say you missed a lot of the different Sonic games previously, or you didn't live in a region that had some of these specific games. So this has Sonic R on it. This has Sonic CD on it and it has Sonic the Fighters, which I had never played before. I'd never seen an arcade that had Sonic the Fighters on it. And it had Game Gear games, Sonic Game Gear games, which I had a Game Gear very late, again, early 2000s, and I've had a couple Sonic games for it. But this was one that, I really stood out to me. Firstly, the cover. But playing this, got to play basically it was like the PC port of Sonic R. Sonic CD, I don't remember if that was the PC port or if that was just the Sega, like a Sega CD emulated. But Sonic Gems collection was one that I really, I had found myself playing a lot on the GameCube, apart from all the other great titles. And again, some of these titles may not be mainstays, may not be like instantly like, well, why did you pick that as your one for the GameCube? Well, again, this one stood out to me. This one stood out to me, and anytime I go back and play the GameCube, I pop this in and play those games, even though there are other ways to play those games now, especially maybe like Sonic CD, more superior ways to play that. But this one stood out, and it may not be my only GameCube game on the list, but this one stood out to me, and I enjoyed immensely. Now, one that is a mainstay. Okay, let's talk about the Super Nintendo for a second. So, I'm gonna put it right out there. I never owned a whole lot of games for the Super Nintendo. I probably own a dozen, maybe 15 games total for the Super Nintendo. And the story about that is I ended up going to a garage sale, like a tag sale, and this was again early 2000s. So Super Nintendo was not really something that people were collecting or playing a lot back then. You had N64, you had GameCube, and you know, retro games, they weren't really retro at that time. They were just older games. You had Atari and you had other stuff that were way more retro. But anyways, I went to this garage sale and somebody had a Super Nintendo there. I was like, great. I'm, new in collecting. Let me pick up a Super Nintendo if the price is right. Cool. I think it was like 10, 15 bucks, something like that. And they had a couple shoe boxes of games. Well, I picked out, the classics, the ones that I recognized from gaming magazines like GamePro. Super Mario World, Chrono Trigger. Yes, there was a Chrono Trigger in there, and I was like, I recognize this one. This one, I think it was good. Cool, grab it. Final Fantasy 3, things like that. But then they had a couple box games. Mega Man X. So, Mega Man X is probably my favorite Mega Man game that I've ever played. The funny story about Mega Man X, though, again, this is around the time I first got Super Nintendo. Mega Man X, I actually first played it on PC DOS. I had the shareware version of Mega Man X on DOS, and shareware, I think, was only the first level. It was, and I had played it way earlier. It was mid 90s. I had played it, and I fell in love with the shareware, and I had found out that it was Mega Man X, and I picked this one up and have loved it. So Mega Man X is one of the standout titles on Super Nintendo for me, partly because of the DOS shareware version, the trial version, but also just because it's been a long mainstay in my life. The other Mega Mans are great. They're tough. Some of them I just don't have the patience for, but Mega Man X, just, I don't know, it was like the next iteration that impressed me the most. Of course, Chrono Trigger and the other games, Super Mario World and whatnot, fantastic. They're a mainstay, but I had to go with Mega Man X just because of the cross-pollination. I was able to play it on those different platforms. So this one is kind of interesting. Back, again, when I was around the same time, I was starting to collect more and more Sega stuff because people were practically throwing out Sega games and Sega systems. Sega CD, I got the Model 1, the big one. Got that pretty cheap. And 32X I've had since the mid 90s when it was brand new. And I was just going through and collecting the different games for it. Well, I discovered that there were Sega CD 32X games. Basically, you had to have both the Sega CD and 32X to play them. I think there was like 5 games for it. But one of them, and sorry for the sticker residue, I haven't cleaned it off. One of them was Fahrenheit. Not to be confused with the PS2 game that is called Fahrenheit in other regions. But Fahrenheit, this is a firefighter simulator full motion video game, FMV game. And this one has a Sega CD version and a 32X version. So you can technically pop the Sega CD disc in there if you have just the Sega CD. They call it the key disc. Pop it in there, and you can play the 32X version. Insert key disc 1 first. But yeah, oh, and here's an ad for Surgical Strike. Now on Sega CD and 32X. This one is a whole different other story. But Fahrenheit, I'm pretty sure you can play just the Sega CD version. If I'm wrong, that's totally cool. Let me know in the comments. I'm probably misremembering it. But this one was actually fun. I know I say that for these games. Full motion video is known for garbage games. Games that are just schlock. They're just, you either die really quickly or they're too easy. You have Night Trap, which is a notorious full motion video game. But this one I really enjoyed because there was some pressure behind it. You had a choice of going into different rooms, and different things that you had consequences, of course. But this one stuck in my mind because people are like, oh, there's no good full motion video games, and I'm like, honestly, try Fahrenheit. It's not the greatest, but this one stuck out to me because this one was the easiest to get into for me, and it was the most fun, and it was probably the easiest to progress, to feel like you're actually accomplishing something. So this one was fun. It was simple premise, firefighter, but I kind of wish there was more games like this. Not like, Supernatural Basketball or, different things like that. But Fahrenheit for the Sega CD 32X. All right, let me clear my out. Oh, okay. Some of my... All right, on to the 3DO. Yes, the Panasonic 3DO. This one actually is one of my more recent pickups. The Atari Jaguar and the 3DO were 2 systems that I picked up probably the most recently. It's within the past few years, as well as ones where by the point I wanted to pick it up, the library was already pretty expensive, and the Jaguar I had played back in the 90s, late 90s, I believe. And it was cool, but, the 3DO I had never really played. And from what I had seen, it seemed like there was a lot of PC CD-ROM game crossover with the 3DO. The 3DO, what's interesting is, again, it was really expensive when it came out. And I don't see a whole lot of newer attention to the 3DO because there's a lot of people that, especially in the realm of fan games and newer releases, I don't see a lot of 3DO action. But so I wanted to highlight the 3DO today because I feel like it is, even, it was expensive and it was probably justifiably overlooked and pushed aside based on everything else that was in the market at the time. 3DO was touted as like the most powerful platform. It's great for CD-ROM based games at the time, and one of the ones, and again, there's actually a couple other ones I almost want to rather talk about, but one that kind of crosses the most platforms that I've played it on is Theme Park. Oh wow! By the way, ooh, look at this, the size of this box. This is like old school CD box that were really. It's before like some of the jewel cases. Like you got the cardboard cover, got the big manual in there, and registration cards. So I love the box, but Theme Park, this holds a special place in my heart. Crossing over to the Genesis, I love the Genesis version of Theme Park. That was the one that I first played, was on the Genesis. I also played it on PC CD-ROM. At the time, you needed, I think it was like a 386 computer, 386, 486, mid to early 90s. So like Doom, if you have a computer that runs Doom on it, that qualifies for Doom, well, anything can run Doom now, right? But I mean, back when it was released, that was around the time this came out. But what's cool about this one is this one, I mean, it has a different video cutscenes in it. Uh, this one really, to me, was like the closest you could get to the PC version on a console. So this is one reason why it's one of my favorite things to run on a 3DO. There are some other amazing games that, again, are completely overlooked, criminally overlooked, that were both on the 3DO. Some, I think, maybe were both on 3DO, but also on PC. This is by the renowned Bullfrog Studios, uh, which was under EA and buried later on. But Theme Park, again, one of my favorite games, one of my favorite versions is on the 3DO. So if you have a 3DO, check it out. If you don't, GOG, if you have a PC, GOG.com, I think has a copy of it. Play it there. It's just, it's a very basic, in today's standards, theme park simulator. So, Theme Park, so much fun. I love it. Go check it out. Now we're going to a couple of newer game consoles. Newer as in this one they actually still make games for. This game, Dragon Quest 11. Yes, Dragon Quest 11, Echoes of an Elusive Age. This one, it's funny because when I bought this game, I had picked up a PS4 and repaired it really on the cheap. It was several years after the PS4 was out, and I picked it up, and I wanted to pick it up because of the exclusive games that were on it at the time, that were exclusive at the time, and you can only get them on the PS4. So I picked this up because at the time it was exclusive, and it was one of the big reasons why I wanted to play a PS4. This game is gorgeous. It's beautiful. An amazing, amazing addition to the Dragon Quest line. Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest line. I'm a big fan. I was a big fan since I played it on the PS1, actually. It was kind of later, but Dragon Quest 7, I believe, was on the PS1. Yeah. Multi-disc game. So cool. 3D with the 2D sprites, which is now, of course, a big thing for Dragon Warrior and Dragon Quest. But this one, I have to shout out for the PS4. There's so many good games for the PS4. A lot of them are not exclusive anymore, and I'm not, even though I have an Xbox shirt, I'm not really, I'm more PC and Xbox, but I love Switch. PS4, I love to get my hands on games that are exclusive for PS4. I still have it for it because I don't want to give up this copy. Yeah, oh yeah, I got this at GameStop. Used probably the day I got the week I got my PS4 and fixed it. So, fantastic game. It's goofy as all heck. Some great characters. Definitely one of those games where you grind and you have fun playing the game. Old school RPG. If you love old school RPGs, whatever platform you can get it for, get this game. Absolutely recommended it. PS4, especially for a PS4, is good, but there's newer versions on other platforms that have extra bonus stuff. Play that version if you can get your hands on it for sure. Now, this last one I want to cover today is actually a game that, again, it was one of those ones where I'm going to cover for this is for the Xbox 360, okay? This was at a time when I was making my own money, and I had my own job, and I had my own responsibilities, and I was really frugal. And I wanted to wait and buy the 360 until I had a list of 10 games that were exclusive to the platform and were must-haves. Games that I absolutely wanted to have that were not on any other system. And that was kind of my justification for waiting to buy and pretty much any console going forward. But it really started with the 360. And I'm kind of glad I waited, because when I waited, the prices have come down a little bit at that time. This was like 2007 maybe. Yeah, 2007-ish, around that time, when you had games like Mass Effect that were exclusive for the 360. You had a ton of, you had Halo, you had Gears of War. Really great reasons to pick up the console. It wasn't brand new. But this game, Crackdown, only on the 360. Well, the first Crackdown was awesome because at the time, you had Grand Theft Auto. I believe that came out around the same time, if not a little bit after. This one came out 2006. But this is like, I mean, if you take like a cartoon version of Grand Theft Auto, you are basically like a police officer that is riddled against, the city is riddled with crime, gang crime, and now you have superhuman abilities. Let's go ahead and make it a collectathon, Grand Theft Auto, kill the different gang bosses. Well, kind of classic Grand Theft Auto, because classic like GTA 2, you had different gangs and stuff like that. There's some of the elements now, but Crackdown really was one of those games that showed off the power of the 360 to me at the time. Really fun. You could do some co-op on the system. You could do two-player co-op. But this was really one that was like, man, I want to be a superhero in this cel-shaded, styled type of a game. Really fun. Newer Crackdowns, I still like them a lot, but this is the classic one. This is one of my favorite ones. The 360 has, of course, since become such a major and well-renowned Xbox console, probably considered their best at this point. And this game is awesome. I believe it does work on the newer consoles with backwards compatibility. Looks fantastic. So yeah, if you have not played Crackdown, I mean, you might want to pick up a 360 or pick up any newer console that will work with Crackdown. But if you can pick it up, Crackdown is definitely a sweet reason to play a 360, or just to have some fun, just to pick up, be able to collect different things. I love collecting items, going around and just like, okay, I see that item on top of that tower. I need to figure out how to get up there and collect that item. I love games like that. And this is definitely one of those where you get different abilities. You can jump higher and run faster and stuff like that. But anyways, definitely one that I absolutely love, and I remember fondly from the 360. So yeah, so those were some games that, again, I remember fondly. I remember, and if you were to ask me what is one of your favorite games from any specific platform, those are the games that stand out. Part 1. I'm going to make a part 2 with some more games on some other platforms that I haven't talked about today. And maybe part 3, part 4, however long this goes in different consoles. Because, again, I have a lot of games that I've played from across the decades that I love. And some of them are I think are criminally underrated, or they stuck out to me even though they're not amazing games in the grand scheme of things. But there's some games that I just feel like that really stuck out to me and really kind of want to bring me back. Anytime I want to go back and play those games and those consoles, yeah, these are the ones that are like the low-hanging fruit. It's like, all right, well, let me play my PS4. What am I gonna play? I'm gonna put in some Dragon Quest, things like that. Of course, there's other great games for that console and other consoles, but I'm gonna probably cover those in future videos. But yeah, thank you for joining me today. I will see you later, and game on.